EU foreign ministers are meeting today, hoping to agree on a roadmap to peace in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The EU's initiative comes as Israel faces mounting international pressure to end its offensive in Gaza. At the heart of their plan is a call for a preparatory peace conference that would be organized by the EU, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and the League of Arab States. And the United States and United Nations would also be invited to take part. Germany's foreign minister has said the only solution to the conflict is a two-state solution.
Israel can only be safe if Palestinians are safe and if they can live with dignity. And Palestinians can only be safe and live with dignity and freedom if Israel is safe. That is why the two-state solution is the only solution. And all of those who are not in favor of this have so far failed to come up with an alternative solution. There can only be peace if there is peace for all the people living in the region.
I'm joined now by DW Brussels correspondent Jack Perrick, reporting from that meeting of the EU foreign ministers. Hi, Jack. We've just heard Annalena Baerbock there demanding a two-state solution. Is there general agreement among EU foreign ministers that this is the preferred option for peace in the region?
It definitely is, and it's been really interesting as we've seen the foreign ministers enter their meetings here in Brussels today that they've all wanted to talk again about this two-state solution as the key sort of cornerstone of EU foreign policy with regards to everything that's going on in the Middle East. The reason that they want to talk about that is because it's easy for them to come to an agreement on it. This has been an EU position that there needs to be a two-state solution in the Middle East for many, many years. And what we've seen is divisions among EU member countries, specifically over calls for ceasefire, how much pressure should be put on Israel in order to allow humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip, etc. But on this issue of the two-state solution, this is a unified position already, and we're seeing that messaging really come out strongly as perhaps some of the divisions amongst the EU member states have started to show in recent weeks. It's a really important meeting of foreign ministers here in Brussels today. They don't only have their 27 members of the European Union, but we've just seen the Israeli foreign minister, Israel Katz, enter the room. He is going to be speaking to them as well about the issues, and later on in the day we have the Palestinian foreign minister arriving, as well as the foreign ministers from other Arab states. So that peace conference that you talked about that the EU is potentially suggesting, this seems like something of a precursor, whether the EU can get not only EU countries on board with this conference, but whether they can persuade other players in this issue as well.
And Jack, I want to ask you about media reports. We've been seeing that EU member states will also be discussing possible consequences for Israel if Prime Minister Netanyahu continues to oppose Palestinian statehood. Is it already clear what might be on the table there?
Not really at all. This suggestion that the FT's been reporting that there could be potential consequences if Benjamin Netanyahu didn't get on board with the two-state solution idea, it's just from a document that was leaked ahead of this meeting. So many of the other countries, we've pressed some of the foreign ministers to ask them what their potential positions would be on it, but they don't want to be drawn. This is the working document that goes into the meeting. What comes out of the meeting as far as an agreement is something completely different oftentimes. Just back on the two-state solution issue, though, and this sort of press for Benjamin Netanyahu to get on board with it. He himself, the Prime Minister of Israel, and other senior Israeli ministers have not wanted to talk about the creation of any sort of state for the Palestinians. There's been some messaging really opposed to that in the last few weeks especially, and that's as well why European Union foreign ministers are wanting to talk about this, because they can not only be unified, but it's a position that they want to impress on the Israelis as well.
So they may be unified, but how much influence does the EU really have here? I mean, we've seen Israel's most powerful ally, the United States, trying to convince Netanyahu, unsuccessful in making any headway, that a two-state solution would be the right response. Can the EU make a bigger impact?
I think there's no illusions or delusions here in Brussels that the United States is really the power player when it comes to Israel. But they do have strong economic ties with Israel. They also have influence with Palestinians as well. Certainly EU countries specifically. Countries like smaller countries like Cyprus have very strong diplomatic ties across the Middle East, geographically and historically, obviously. So they do know that they do have diplomatic sway. As you say, the question of whether they really can force Israel's hand to bring an end to the conflict, if that's what is being called for, the two-state solution, all of that kind of stuff, it's difficult to see. But they'll try and assert as much power on the visiting ministers as they can today during these meetings.
Thank you so much for those insights. That is DW's Brussels correspondent, Jack Perrick, for us.